Cool. Welcome, everyone. I'm Yossi Hassan. I'm here to talk to you about how to pitch your project. Thank you for coming through. Entrepreneurs and founders fundamentally don't really know how to pitch their projects. They basically suck at pitching. I know this because I've seen hundreds of pitches throughout my years, and I can count the ones that are memorable on one hand. I'm Yossi Hassan. I'm the managing director of the Alchemist Blockchain Techstars Accelerator. It's Techstars' first dedicated blockchain accelerator program. And I'm here to help you, hopefully not suck at pitching your projects. So before we go into the pitch itself, what do you think the number one rule to think about is before you go and pitch? What would you say is the number one rule? You can give me your name when. Anyone? Less than 1 minute? Okay. I think that could be the number one rule, depending on the format. What else?
I guess concise and simplify the idea. If you cannot explain it to your grandma, probably.
Okay, concise and simplified, yeah. Anyone else got an idea of what's the number one rule of pitching?
Clear with the problems and clear with the solution.
Clear with the problem and the solution. All right. Almost there. Number one rule of pitching, knowing your audience. Who are you pitching to? Who's in the room? You're going to be pitching a project, and who are you pitching that project to? Who are you pitching the startup to? So, you guys might be pitching. How's it going? You guys might be pitching tomorrow. Who's the audience? A bunch of developers. Who else? Some investors. Do you know who's potentially judging? Tomorrow you have Vitalik. I'd say he's pretty technical. You have Leslie Claassen from 1KX, who's an investor. And you have Joyce from Global Coin Research, who is very much plugged in to the West and East ecosystem. And then you have everyone else here who's at ETHNewYork. So what you want to think about is when you're pitching, depending on who the audience, how do you tweak your pitch to the individuals that you're going to be pitching to? If it's just a panel of judges, it might be different to a very technical audience. And if it's a startup pitch competition, that might be slightly different in how technical you go into what you're talking about. So you've got to think about, number one, who's the audience that you're pitching to? Number two, what's the goal of the pitch? What are you trying to do? Any ideas? Win the hackathon. That's definitely the end goal. Win the prize, yeah? And how do you think you're going to do that?
Get people passionate about what you build.
Get people passionate? And how do you think you can get someone passionate about what you built?
Solve a problem for them.
Solve a problem for them? Yeah?
Solve the real use case that everyone is suffering.
Solve a real use case that everyone's suffering. Great. So solve. Huh? Great UI. So what makes the pitch? So this is all the stuff that you're going to be talking about. What makes the pitch the one that people remember? You've got 20 people pitching. How do you stand out in that pitch? What are you competing with, do you think, in the audience?
Attention.
You're competing with attention. I am competing right now with you, and then you're going to be competing with everyone else against this device in someone's pocket. It's going to be buzzing, it's going to have Twitter, it's going to have a whole world of excitement going on over here, and you are between me and that excitement, and you've got to be able to engage me. And the way you can engage me is by entertaining me and impressing me. That's really the way that what you're trying to convey in your pitch. You may be trying to solve a big problem, it may be a big need, it may have a solution that affects everyone, but the only way you're going to be able to articulate that is if you entertain me and impress me. Most pitches, unlike tomorrow, but most pitches, you aren't there to actually get a check or get a customer or nail the deal in the room in that pitch. You're trying to do it to most probably get another meeting. You want to entertain and impress the person enough that they want to come up to you and say, I'd like to chat. For tomorrow, you got it right. You also want to win the hackathon and win the prize. So that's what you're trying to do. So there's 4 sections to a pitch. This isn't rocket science, but this is what we recommend the general structure to be. You've got the intro, you've got the demo, you have the business stuff, and we'll talk through what that is, and then you have the landing. And the size of the blocks there is a rough indication of how much time you should be spending on each. Depending on how much time has been allocated to you, this is how you should carve out the various components of your pitch. So in a 5-minute pitch, you'd be spending 30 to 60 seconds on the intro, about 2 to 3 minutes on the demo, a minute on the business stuff, to a minute and a half, and 30 seconds on the landing. That's how you would structure the overall arch of your story and parts that you go into the pitch. So let's talk about them. The intro, explaining what you do and why I should care. So what I call this is reason to care. A lot of people start with the solution, start about what you're doing, but really what it is that you're doing and I should care. I started this conversation here and this pitch here with that developers and entrepreneurs suck at pitching. Why would I start with that? Well, it's just to get your attention up. It's maybe a bit dramatic, but saying you suck at pitching, maybe you're going to listen to me. On top of that, I've spoken about you fighting for attention. On top of that, you want to, in the introduction, build your credibility for the problem and pain that you're trying to solve. So what else did I say when I opened in the room? I said entrepreneurs suck at pitching, and I know that because I've seen hundreds of pitches over the years, and I can only remember a few on my hand. And I'm Yossi from Techstars, Techstars Blockchain Accelerator, building in my credibility that I know this pain and this solution, this pain and this problem, and I introduced myself and my brand. And you can do all of that in 30 seconds. 60 seconds if you need it, but 30 seconds if you really are able to land it. And then what you want to do in the intro, on top of that, is illuminate what we call illuminate the problem. And I'm going to show you some techniques on how you can illuminate that problem, how you can dig in deeper on why this problem is a real pain that needs to be solved and that you should be focusing on and should be awarded the hackathon prize tomorrow. And lastly, lastly, within the intro section, you want to establish some baseline credibility. Why are you the person that I should be listening to? What's the reason for me to believe that you have an understanding of this problem and be able to talk about it? And that was all, if you think about my opening, contained in those first 30 to 60 seconds. And lastly, what you want to be in the intro section is fucking interesting. Going back to either impressing or entertaining me, you want to be able to be the person who is interesting in the audience and be able to connect with the audience. So some of the ways or some ideas on how to be interesting. You can start off with a startling fact, something that would be completely left field to what you're actually talking about. An interesting personal story on how you got to standing in front of the audience. You could contradict conventional wisdom. You could make the audience laugh, play to a known fear, be appropriately different, and make me go, that's very interesting. So those are the kind of things that you want to do in this intro section. I'm going to show you an example of one of those on how a great example of a company called Keen.io told their story in their pitch at one of the Techstars demo days. So hopefully I can navigate this computer. It's two screens flawlessly, most likely not, so just bear with me. Let's get out of this. And there we go. All right, so I want you to pay attention to the opening story.
I'm Ryan, one of the co-founders of Team. In that team, we are reinventing analytics for mobile applications. And to help me explain how, I'm going to tell you a little story. This is Tycho Brahe, a 16th century astronomer. He's famous for collecting an astounding amount of astronomical data. Every night, he would write down the position and the brightness of every star and every planet in the sky. And after 30 years of doing this, he died. Luckily, he had an assistant named Johannes Kepler. Kepler took Brahe's data, applied his own genius, and single-handedly came up with the laws of planetary motion that we still use to this day. Because Brahe dedicated his entire life to gathering all that data, Johannes Kepler is now cemented in history as a genius. And that's exactly what we do. Every mobile application is its own universe, full of data being generated by millions of users. And we can record that data in meticulous detail, just like Rahi. Only instead of stars and planets and their positions, our technology records every touch, every swipe, every purchase, and every share. We can record every interaction within an application and store it in our data warehouse in the cloud. And our customers use this data to discover new patterns of how their users are using their application. Our technology unleashes their genius. We turn our customers into Johannes Keplers.
Well, what do we think of that? As an opening to effectively an analytics and tracking company app. Was it good?
Yeah.
Thought it was good? Anyone thought, meh, average? You don't have to take my word for it. Happy for people to disagree. What was anything bad about it? How long was that? How long do you think it was? 2-3 minutes? 1.5 minutes? It was about 2 minutes. If I was to criticize it, it's a little bit long. You could probably do that story in about a minute. People start losing a little bit of attention. But you get the idea of coming in with something that's interesting, that didn't open up and say, we're a mobile analytics company that tracks every movement that a person makes on their phone. They took your imagination somewhere and then brought you into it. Another technique that you could use is what we call twisting the knife when you're talking about the problem. And I'm going to show you here what we mean by that through another pitch, one of our pitches, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Do this more elegantly, make it very hard. That's not the one.
I'm here with my co-founder Shane Taylor, and we're ScriptPad. ScriptPad transforms the iPad and iPhone into a digital prescription pad, enabling doctors to write prescriptions faster and safer than their current paper process. Why do this? Because this stuff kills people. This is an example of a completely illegible, handwritten paper prescription. The pharmacist in this case dispensed the wrong heart medication because he couldn't read the doctor's handwriting. He mistook Iserdil for Plendil, and instead of controlling the patient's condition, the medication caused a massive and fatal heart attack. And this happens again and again and again. In fact, of the 1.7 billion handwritten prescriptions scrawled out each year on those familiar paper script pads, up to 40% contain some form of error. Whether it's missed drug interactions, improper dosing, or just plain unreadable handwriting. Each year, 7,000 people die, and another 1.5 million are injured as a result of these errors, causing billions in avoidable hospitalization.
Let's be honest.
What she's going to ask is, who never wants to take a paper script ever again after hearing that? So you get the idea of what does it mean to twist the knife on a pain and a problem. I'm spending quite a lot of time on the intro because that's really the hook of your entire pitch. If you don't nail the first 30 to 60 seconds of your pitch, the rest of the pitch is almost irrelevant. You've lost the audience. You've lost the attention of the people. You're competing with their phone, and they may hear what you're trying to say, and if you're only going to bring in this information later, it may not land. So it's extremely important. So when you're thinking about your pitches tomorrow, what you should be almost allocating, even though it's the first 30 to 60 seconds, is 70% of your time on trying to get that intro and that hook and nailing that. Any questions so far? Cool. The second section, what we call the demo section, and this is probably the second most important part, is where we talk about showing instead of telling. Show me, don't tell me. You're all spending the next 48 hours hacking something together. This is the time to actually show me what you've done. And while you're showing me what you've done, instead of just showing the technology, also explain all the unique things that this now either enables or will enable once it's completed beyond what you've been able to achieve in the hackathon. So an example of that, a company called Dukely. We make an app that lets friends discover and attend live music shows. They're not the first ever to do something like that, but the way that they demonstrated their demo showed an extremely rich application that did it with a UI and a UX that was world-renowned. I don't know if I have enough time. What time does the session end, roughly? It's half an hour? Okay, so let me briefly show you how they went about doing that to give you an idea on how you can effectively show and not tell. The sound quality for this one is not amazing, I apologize.
Sign up with Dukely. You connect your music services, and we learn what you like. You connect your social networks, and we learn what your friends like. This gives us the ability to make highly personalized recommendations to your whole group. We analyze music taste data across the social graph, and we match you magically with different friends for each show, and even friends of your friends who might be good to go with. And then we make it very easy for you to ping that group so you can get the conversation started around the show. We call this band together. This right here is the critical component that gets people out the show. And once the decision has been made, it's so easy to buy the tickets. Right in the app, just a few taps, you can purchase your tickets and you'll be put on the list. It's that simple.
So it's not.
So what you're trying to do in the demo is not narrate what the person is seeing on the screen and you're not talking through like, here I'm logging in, here I'm connecting into this. You may do that tomorrow because it's a technical audience and maybe that's the thing that's interesting, but what you really want to show them is all the functionality that you're unlocking and the experience that the person is able to go through and all the unique differentiation that's able to happen because of the way you've built it. What you can tell from this team over here just by watching their demo is that they're extremely good at UI and UX, that the interface, they've thought through the entire experience for an individual, that they get how to make it as simple as possible to create that experience. Now, that person didn't say we're experts in UI and UX and we've made the best, a simple experience and application. He showed me how you were able to do that. So tomorrow, if you could think about how you can show the thing that you've built, you want to spend 2 minutes on that within your pitch. So show, don't tell. The next section, the business section, typically it's about money. How will you make money? What's your business model? Tomorrow may be different because you might be talking about an open source project and a contribution and you are looking for some grant funding and it's not necessarily about a business model or it could be about a token structure or something along those lines. But traditionally, you'd be talking about the elements that make your organization, your startup, or this project interesting beyond just the technology. So you could be talking about a business model that revolves some kind of token economics. So this is LivePeer as an example. It could be something more traditional where you have free versions, pro versions, and enterprise versions. You're going to be talking about the market, why this market and the size of the potential market, and why this is something that needs to be solved and solves a big pain. And you'll be speaking about how you go about differentiating yourselves from your competitors. And the way you do that isn't by talking about what your competitors don't do. You don't necessarily say, well, there's these 3 other companies and this one doesn't do that and this one doesn't do that. You talk about the things that make you unique. So you rather just focus on the attributes that make your solution unique as opposed to what makes the competitor inferior. Does that make sense? Great. You speak about the team and put up a slide on who the people involved were. And normally, 1 or 2 unique things about the individuals, not their entire CV. If someone contributed to Python, just mention that as opposed to the 15 years developer or anything along those lines. So you go into the team and people behind it. I don't expect you to have much traction by tomorrow, but maybe you've already been, these are projects that you've been working on for some time. What's the traction you've been able to achieve? Have you got this live running anywhere? Have you integrated with any other projects? Have you got people using it? Are there code commits? Whatever the things that could be that would show that this is a team that is able to not only execute, but there is a response from the market that what you're doing is getting a positive response. So that's the business stuff. You're going to spend a minute to a minute and a half on that and covering all of those elements. And then from there, you're going to go into the landing section, where you leave a lasting impression and you end leaving the audience wanting to come and meet with you. And how do you do that? Well, a couple of things. One, you bring it back to what you spoke about in the beginning. So you close from the intro. We started about how entrepreneurs and founders suck at pitching. So hopefully by the end of this, you won't suck at pitching. And you beat people over the head with your key points. You reiterate the points that the key points that you wanted to make sure that they understand within the pitch. And you stick the landing. And the landing is that final line that you end with. So hopefully within the next minute or so, when you go and pitch tomorrow, you won't suck at pitching, because you'll know how to structure your intro, how to do the demo, showing me and not telling me, all the business stuff that's involved, and you'll be able to end the landing with grace. And if you want to come and talk to me more about how to do that, come and talk to me afterwards. That's an example of how you would end your pitch. What most people do, they don't like speaking in front of other people. They're a little bit anxious. As they go through all their content, they're like, oh my God, thank God, and they leave the stage. You don't want to be doing that when you're ending. You want to stand there in your presence and thank the audience in that way. And then very quickly, I've got 50 seconds, some final thoughts while you're doing this pitch. Delivery is everything. When you come on, if you are a little bit stage fright and scared or anxious about it, that can be felt. And if you're going to be, if I came on and said, I'm going to talk to you today about how to do a pitch and everything that goes into it, you would feel that. So delivery and how you come about, the enthusiasm you bring into the audience counts, and bringing your personality to the pitch. Fuck bullet points. No one, people can't listen and read at the same time. No one can do both. Right now you're not listening to me, you're reading what's on the screen. So lots of text and verbiage doesn't work. Skip it. Fuck complex charts. People don't have enough time and can't understand it. So something like this sucks, even if it makes complete sense to you. But that can only work in a one-on-one environment where you can talk it through, whereas something like that rocks, where it's very simple to understand and what you'll be able to do. I'm repeating it again. People will listen or read. They'll not do both. And lastly, generic language is deadly. Especially within the blockchain, crypto world, the amount of generic language and blockchain bingo that we use is deadly. So avoid it at all counts. And then the last thing to remember is practice your answers to the questions that will follow up. What are the top 5 questions that you think someone like Vitalik, Laze, or Joyce will bring at the end of your pitch? Practice answers to those so you can nail that as well. And if you're able to do all of that, you won't suck at pitching anymore. Thank you. Any questions? Yeah.
What is the difference when you do in person and when you do a pitch in a written way and you put down in a document your pitch? What would be the difference between that? Is there recommendations to apply the same principles for a written pitch?
Yeah, so what I would do I would take the same arc structure. So understanding the problem and being able to introduce yourself and why people should care and the credibility of you as a person who can propose a solution, then show me what the solution is, then go through the business stuff. How does it work? What's the pricing? How does it cost? All of the types of things like that. Talk about the team and end with, let's do business, whatever the pricing and the proposal is to sign up. Make sense?
Yeah, just keep the same structure.
Keep the same structure. Yeah. Yep.
Are the slides available somewhere?
I can share them. I'll figure out how to make that available.
And you talked about generic language. Could you give us an example of that?
Generic language is we've built a next generation ticketing system that leverages blockchain for immutable transactions for festival fans. That's like it's buzzwords. It doesn't really tell me anything about what it is that you're trying to do. A next generation blockchain ticketing solution. No, that's generic language. Cool. I think that's all the time we have. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming through. And I think we're having a workshop at 5 o'clock, myself and Jake Bruckman from Coin Fund. I think we're spending 2 hours to help anyone craft their pitches. So if you are working on a project and you want to come and actually workshop it, we'll see you later.